Canadian grocery giants are once again in the hot seat. Empire, the parent company of Sobeys, is pushing back against allegations of anti-competitive conduct, while Weston Limited, owner of Loblaws, is cooperating with a review of the large grocers. Now, the commissioner of the competition launched a probe over an alleged use of property controls to limit grocery competition. All of this is adding to existing PR problems, including a month-long Loblaws boycott, which is expected to be followed by Sobeys boycott next month. So for a closer look at this probe and how it could affect your grocery trips, we're joined this morning by retail expert Doug Stevens. Good to have you with us.
Great to be with you, Anne-Marie.
Okay, so the end of May marks 1 month of a boycott against Loblaws. What are the grocers accused of doing in this case, and how is it potentially affecting pricing?
So the Competition Bureau seems to be focusing in on an aspect of the retail industry with what we call restrictive covenants. And what that means is essentially when a large retailer like a Loblaws or a Sobeys takes space in a commercial property, what they will often do is build into their leasing agreement a restrictive covenant that says to the landlord, because we now occupy this space, you cannot have anyone else that competes either directly or even indirectly in some cases with us. So for example, you can't lease out space to a butcher or a bakery in the same mall that we occupy. And the position of the Competition Bureau, and it's a fair position, is that this really does have a dampening effect on competition. Now, it's also fair to say this is not a new phenomenon. Restrictive covenants have been a reality in retail for decades.
Yeah, how does this latest probe then add to the other investigations into grocery conduct? You know, we hear about them. There was bread price fixing a while ago, and then there was this second probe that was launched and recommendations that came out of that. But how does that affect us overall?
So it's obviously a real building of outrage. And as you point out, you know, the bread fixing scandal that happened about 9 years ago kind of came and went. But I think the pandemic really put a point on consumer frustration where we saw incredibly high prices, but at the same time, Anne-Marie, we saw record profits also being booked by many of these companies. And the fact of the matter is, when you take into account that this country is basically dominated to the tune of 70% of the grocery market by only 3 retailers, obviously, we have to be looking at all avenues of raising the competitive level in this country to give consumers more choice and hopefully be able to bring some downward pressure on pricing.
Well, and then that's been the line of at least the Weston company, who has said, their pushback when they were criticized for high grocery prices is, well, we've got too much government restriction. And so we can't offer competitive prices because of the restrictions. But then the industry minister, François-Philippe Champagne, said, well, he's going to seek a foreign grocer to strengthen market competition. Could that actually be a threat we see realized? There's a lot of steps that have to happen in order for that to enter our grocery stores.
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I guess I see a couple of issues with that. Number one, we have to appreciate that at the end of the day, as much as I love this country, we are small. We are about the same population as California. And so it's a difficult job to entice a specialty retailer like a grocer into a country that has a relatively small market that is already dominated by 3 major incumbents. So that might be difficult. But my feeling is that wouldn't it be better if we could actually put into place a structure that promoted domestic competition, where we could take small to medium-sized grocery retailers in Canada and specialty retailers in the category and actually boost them, give them a framework for growth so that we can grow our own homegrown competition.
Well, that does sound ideal. Here's where I feel stuck as a consumer. You have the big grocer saying one thing, saying, well, we'd like to be able to give you better prices, but really it's the government's fault. And the government saying, fine, then we'll bring in a foreign competitor. And as a consumer, I'm doing this like tennis match back and forth, but I'm still paying $12 a pound for grapes. So what's the solution for consumers? Well,
we've seen one of the solutions through the boycott. And there is now news that the organizers of that boycott are now looking to extend the current boycott on Loblaws. So you're absolutely right. We've got a lot of finger pointing going on. And up until now, consumers have been sort of watching this ping pong match between government and private enterprise. But now what we're starting to see is consumers actually taking action and shifting their consumption from one retailer to another, and in some cases, actually looking for options outside of the big three. So it's this kind of pressure that I believe is bringing companies like Loblaws now to the table to discuss and at least begin those discussions around what they can do to ameliorate the solution.
Doug, always good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on a Monday morning.
Nice to see you. Take care.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.